The fastest fighter jet in the world just broke physics. The F-15's broad wedge tail allowed it to fly at supersonic speeds steadily. At lower speeds, this generated a considerable amount of base drag. At one point, the X-15's blunt tail end could generate as much drag as a whole F-104 starfighter. Since a wedge form provides a more stable surface at hypersonic speeds than a traditional tail, it was chosen for this purpose. The X-15 needed a vertical tail area that matched 60% of its wing area to have sufficient directional stability. Wendell A. Stillwell, research findings on X-15, SP-60. Side panels that could be extended from the tail to increase the overall surface area and function as air brakes, help maintain stability at hypersonic speeds. However, only 3 were constructed, and the U.S. Air Force eventually decided to abandon the project. The North American X-15 can reach 4520 F and Mach 5.93, making it possibly the fastest plane in the world. NASA and the USAF operate and power this experimental aircraft. As a member of the X-plane family of experimental aircraft, the North American X-15 is a hypersonic rocket-powered aircraft flown by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, and the United States Air Force. In the 1960s, the X-15 broke speed and altitude records while traveling to the edge of space and returning with important information for spacecraft and aircraft design. The fastest recorded speed for the X-15 was 4520 miles per hour, 7274 km per hour, 2021 meter per second, which was attained on October 3, 1967 by William J. Knight, while flying at Mach 6.7 at 102,100 feet, 31,120 meters, or 19.34 miles above the ground. This established the unbroken official world record for the fastest speed ever reached by a crewed-powered aircraft. 12 pilots flew 199 flights throughout the X-15 program. Of these, 8 pilots flew a total of 13 flights that satisfied the FAI's definition of outer space, which is 100 kilometers, 62 miles. 2 of those 13 flights flown by the same civilian pilot met the Air Force spaceflight criterion by surpassing the altitude of 50 miles, 80 kilometers. While the 3 civilian pilots eventually received NASA astronaut wings in 2005, 35 years after the final X-15 flight, the 5 Air Force pilots qualified for military astronaut wings right away. Design and creation. Walter Dornberger's concept study of a hypersonic research aircraft for the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, NACA, served as the foundation for the X-15. For the airframe, the request for proposals, RFPs, were released on December 30, 1954, and for the rocket engine, on February 4, 1955. 2 manufacturers worked together to develop the X-15. Reaction Motors was contracted in 1956 to build the engines, while North American Aviation was hired in November 1955 to build the airframe. The X-15, like many other X-series aircraft, was intended to be dropped from under the wing of a B-52 mothership and carried aloft. All of the X-15 flights were flown by Air Force NB-52A, the High and Mighty 1, number 52, 3, and NB-52B, the Challenger, Series 52, 8, also known as Balls 8, as carrier aircraft. At a height of approximately 8.5 miles, 13.7 kilometers, and a speed of approximately 500 miles per hour, 805 km per hour, the X-15 was released from NB-52A. The X-15's fuselage was long and cylindrical, with thick wedge fin stabilizers on the dorsal and ventral surfaces, and rear fairings that smoothed out the aircraft's look. The exterior skin of some fuselage sections was made of heat-resistant nickel alloy. Inconel X750. 2 rear skids and a nose wheel carriage made up the retractable landing gear. The pilot had to remove the lower fin right before landing since the skids did not extend past the ventral fin. The parachute was used to retrieve the bottom fin. Propulsion. To make the Bell X-1 the first aircraft to fly faster than the speed of sound in 1947, two reaction motors XLR-11 liquid propellant rocket engines were used in the first 24 powered flights. These engines were upgraded to provide a total of 16,000 pounds force, 71 kN of thrust, as opposed to 6,000 pounds force, 27 kN, that a single XLR-11 provided. Liquid oxygen and ethyl alcohol were used by the XLR-11. Reaction motors supplied the XLR-99 rocket engine, which produced 57,000 pounds force, 250 kN of thrust by November 1960. In a single engine configuration, the XLR-99 engines powered the final 175 X-15 flights. Anhydrous ammonia and liquid oxygen were utilized as propellants by the XLR-99, while hydrogen peroxide propelled the high-velocity turbopump that supplied propellants to the engine. In 80 seconds, it could burn 15,000 pounds, 6804 kg, of propellant. Jules Bergman used the term 90 seconds to space for his book on the program to refer to the aircraft's overall powered flying time. High-test peroxide, HTP, was utilized by the X-15 Reaction Control System, RCS, to maneuver in the low-pressure density environment. HTP breaks down into water and oxygen when a catalyst is present and may produce a specific impulse of 140s. A turbopump for the primary engines and auxiliary power units, APUs, was also fed by the HTP. Helium gas was used to purify the interior of the fuselage, and liquid nitrogen was utilized as cooling for different systems. Additional tanks held helium and liquid nitrogen. Highest flight. According to the U.S. Armed Forces definition of the space frontier, 8 pilots who flew over 264,000 feet, 50.0 miles, 80 kilometers, during 13 of the 199 total X-15 flights qualified as astronauts. All 5 Air Force pilots, including Adams, who was granted the honor posthumously after the Flight 191 catastrophe, were given military astronaut wings concurrent with their accomplishments of flying more than 50 miles. The other 3, who worked for NASA, did not at the time earn a similar honor. The commercial spaceship-owned pilots, Mike Melville and Brian Binney, were awarded the first ever commercial astronaut wings by the Federal Aviation Administration in 2004. Spaceship-owned is a similar spacecraft to the X-15. Following this, NASA retrospectively granted Dana, who was still alive at the time, as well as McKay and Walker posthumously, their civilian astronaut wings in 2005. The single Navy pilot involved in the X-15 program, Forrest S. Peterson, never flew the plane above the necessary height, and as a result never obtained astronaut wings. So this is the end of our today's video. Do you like it? Kindly give your valuable response in our comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting and informative videos.